take steps. At the same time, try to be doing what Bladek's doing. Sheila told me they're starting to do education with the youth and trying to foster some entrepreneurship among students. But do those kinds of things. I talked with the developer. She doesn't think office space is going to be the same way 10 years from now as it is now. If you look at the way in which people can collaborate and not necessarily be in the same place, you don't necessarily have to have a dedicated office space. In fact, the developer I talked with, they used to have an office space, but they're always busy and they're out doing their own thing, and they communicate with each other via email. And they said, why are we renting this office space? And so they collaborate in a different way now. This is starting to spring up where you create collaborative work environments. And maybe it's an entrepreneurial library environment where people who are trying to start businesses have that kind of support. And maybe that happens in a place that's in downtown. You're already doing a lot of the streetscape improvements that contribute to an environment that people like. I mean, this is a very old environment that's very successful now, and it's got the benches, and it's got the pavers, and it's got the trees, and that's everything that you guys have done in downtown. Don't stop doing that. But the one lesson is don't make this environment more distracting from your retail, because that would be a big no-no. You want this to support what's happening in these environments. Oh, and I want to go back one thing here. I worked for Clemson University for a couple of years, and they have a youth learning institute. And University of Minnesota has an extension office right downtown. Another ally in this idea of entrepreneurship is this idea of a youth learning institute, where you're really making a focused effort on bringing the students in during school, after school, during the summer, and equipping them with these kinds of skills that kind of make these kinds of environments really positive and really enjoyable, and lead to students working with retirees, residents from elsewhere saying, I really like what's happening in Brainerd, and coming back and starting a business. Those people who are long-term unemployed, got nothing to lose, they're the kind of people that actually the research indicates they're willing to give creating a business a shot because nothing else has worked. If you think about that parking lot with the solar panels, there's a lot of different ways in which potential infrastructure, the big ticket infrastructure, can support this kind of thing. If you had the ability to somehow get energy from your infrastructure in novel ways, either solar panels or you somehow banked heat, or there's a company in Israel that's developed these devices that go into the roads and that capture the displacement of cars driving, and they're actually generating power from just traffic. I mean, that's not tenable right now, but who knows, 20 years from now, I used to know the traffic load on Washington Avenue, but I'm pretty sure it's upwards of 20,000 vehicles a day. It might be higher. 20 years from now, there might be a lot of power that you could generate off that road that supports your businesses downtown. But you have to get to that point. What are some of the things? What are some of the opportunities for business for this entrepreneurship? Well, if you're really playing around with the streetscape, with what kinds of things are going on to the street environment, whether it's chalk markings or bollards or whatever, maybe you tap into some of those unemployed former boat builders or engine makers that live in this area. You start prototyping and designing, and you start creating a business of doing really cool, really innovative lighting elements, or trash elements, or whatever it is that you find on the street. And you begin just demoing those in this environment. And maybe those demos change every couple of months. And then maybe you actually begin using some of these businesses that are being supported by the power that you're giving from your infrastructure to actually begin making an export out of something like this. I mean, someone's building this stuff. It's not rocket science. We tend to see the same designs over and over, and that's fine. Maybe they work, but the phone hasn't stayed the same in the last 5 years. Some of you have an iPhone. They both work, but we've said we can do better. So so why can't Brainerd take on that kind of attitude? I believe it can. So the goal is, how do you make improvements downtown that affect the entire city and region? And I think you start small. you do things cheap, you do them easily, you don't make it permanent, but you start marking that we're trying some new things here. You make the street and the environment readily kind of available for every possible user, especially since downtown is where a lot of, like, that's where you want people to come. You're already having a lot of traffic come through on these roads, but not necessarily turn in and stay. And there's a lot more details. There's a lot of other things I could talk about. They're in this manual. It can be downloaded from this website. So this is basically the basis. I wanted to try and give you something that could have some legs. I've given you a lot of things. Some things you probably don't like. Some things you might like. I don't really have any ego in this. My whole position has been give you something that is possible to be implemented, that people who don't get along can wrap their arms around. And I've tried to do that in a small fashion. I hope that you'll download this. I hope that you'll share this. This isn't about me. This is about this community. And I hope this has been helpful. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.